All right, hello everybody. My name is Steve Warner. I am here with my mentor, my Reiki master teacher, Erin Ryan, who I've worked very much a lot with over the past 5 or 6 years. And she has been the guide, the mentor, the one of my main people in my life who has promoted and held and guided me through such radical transformation. So we're back for another episode today. Erin, please introduce yourself again.
Yes. Oh my God. Thank you for having me back again. Like, oh, it's so fun. It's so fun. Yes, I'm Erin Ryan, as you said. I'm the founder of Element Dragon Fire Reiki. I am the owner of Crystal Lake Reiki LLC, and I have a master's degree in traditional Chinese medicine. I'm a licensed acupuncturist. I began as doing a Reiki, right? So as a Reiki practitioner doing one-on-one, then I quickly started teaching Reiki. That evolved into spiritual mentorship and then also sacred business mentorship as well. And I'm basically what I refer to as a spiritual doula. I am here for the healers, the channels, the priests and priestesses, and the oracles and mystics to help you birth your highest, most world shifting, potent medicine into the world. And typically, what I find is that's through sacred business. That's how so many of us are birthing what we came here to birth. And so it's just been such an honor for me to hold you. I can't believe you were saying like 5 or 6 years. I was like, what? Like, that's insane to me. But I mean, the math lines up. That's correct. So it's just amazing to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just as a quick refresher to anybody who hasn't heard the story before, but Erin and I have worked together extensively, and in terms of the transformation that she helped me go through. So I am bipolar, or I've got the diagnosis of bipolar 1 manic depressive disorder. I've had a long history with addiction. I have a long history with codependent relationships. I have a long history with severe dysregulation in my nervous system. So I met Erin back in 2019, and she was originally my Reiki master. So she taught me Reiki back in 2019. And then as her medicine evolved and the way that she worked with clients evolved, she moved into sacred mentorship. And that's when I started working with her on a one-on-one basis, where she really helped catalyze and guide and hold me through all of the deep internal work required to regulate my nervous system and become the person I am today. And now that work has evolved even further into this sacred business mentorship that she speaks of, where I actually want you, can you describe like what is sacred business?
The way that I describe or define sacred business is any business, it does not matter what type of business, but it's in service to your higher calling, right? So it's whatever you were born to do, you're doing it through your sacred business, whatever that looks like. And for different people, it's different.
Amazing. Oh, that's so simple. That's so like simple and to the point. I love it. So Erin and I have continued to work together as I deepen into the medicine that I'm bringing into the world through teaching Reiki and through sacred intimacy, sexual healing, erotic energy healing, and all of that. So, oh, it's just such a gift to have her in my life, and it's such a gift to have her back on the channel, on the podcast, on the YouTube episode, wherever this is going. Last episode, we talked a lot about Reiki, and today we're going to go even deeper into Reiki, but we're going to go into a new lineage, a new branch, a new evolution of Reiki, which is 5 element Dragon Fire Reiki that Erin, you brought into the world. 5 element Dragon Fire Reiki is the 5 elements of Chinese medicine. And you mentioned you're the owner of Crystal Lake Acupuncture or Crystal Lake Reiki and Acupuncture, is it?
Yeah, it's technically it's Crystal Lake Reiki LLC, but sometimes they'll be like Crystal Lake Reiki and acupuncture because I also do acupuncture. So either.
Okay. Awesome. So 5 element Dragonfire Reiki is associated or very tightly linked to the 5 elements of Chinese medicine. Acupuncture deals with the 5 elements of Chinese medicine. Can you talk a little bit about, I guess, just Chinese medicine, the 5 elements, and then meridians?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned it in my intro that I do have a master's degree in traditional Chinese medicine. I got that back in 2017. And I'm a 5 element acupuncturist. So we work with those 5 elements. We work with the meridian system. The meridian system, they're like energy highways in the body or channels. And so we have 20 of them total. There are elemental meridians, which again correspond to those 5 elements, which are fire, earth, metal, water, and wood in traditional Chinese medicine. They all correspond to a different emotional state in the body, and there's 12 of those. There's also 8 meridians called extraordinary vessels. Those are the first that are created in utero. And I kind of love them. No, I don't kind of love them. I'm sort of obsessed with them because they are mysterious. Even now, even today, there's not a ton that is known about them. Of course, different people are doing different dives with them, but those meridians, they speak to me. They started speaking to me when I actually started pretty early on in my studies when I was doing my master's degree. So I am very intuitive. I have a lot of anybody who's familiar with Claire, so I'm like clairaudient and all of these different types of things. So I get a lot of messages. I hear things. I see visuals. I get a lot of sensory information in my body, all of that kind of thing. So when I started on my master's, it was a surprise to me that the actual meridians themselves were speaking to me, and the elements. This is just so cool to me. I don't really talk about it very often, but I don't know if you know this, Stephen. On my right palm, I actually have a 5-pointed star.
Oh no, I didn't know this.
Yes, it's a 5-pointed star. And I remember growing up as a little girl, and I'm like, what is this? Like, why do I have? Because that's like not coincident. How is it that I have this? And I think it's amazing that like you go decades later, become a 5 element acupuncturist, study this in depth, and I was like, oh my God, that's why. Like I was meant to be bringing this medicine through. I was meant to do that, and so I just love Eastern medicine, and I love how deep and how connected it is to our body. It explains a lot of things that traditional Western medicine can't explain, which is really cool.
Amazing. Amazing. So, circling back to the meridian system, I feel like most people that are in the spiritual world or spiritual curious have heard, I love that word, spiritual curious, have heard of the chakra system, right? I knew about the chakra system long before I knew about the meridian system. How would you compare and contrast the chakra systems versus the meridian system?
The chakra system, it goes up the midline of the body. Yes, there's minor chakras all over the body, like, in your palms and your feet. And where that's two of the meridians run that way. So there's the red meridian, which runs up the front line of the body, on the front of your body. And then there's the dew meridian that runs up your spine and wraps around. So there's like intersecting with the chakra system. But the meridian system runs throughout the entirety of the body. So for instance, if you wiggle your fingers and toes, like there's 6 different meridians that are either beginning or ending right on your toes and your fingers or near them. So it think of it like, I don't know, like a heart pumping, right? And then there's all the vascular system. The meridians are so extensive. They run throughout the entirety of the body, as opposed to being, those the chakras they're known as wheels, right? And they're circulating, but they're more, I'm not going to say static, but they do stay in one spot, which is again is that midline of the body. So they are different. So they do interact and they do intersect.
Amazing. So, deepening into meridians, there's 20 of them. And looking at the lens of the energetic body, so chi circulates through the meridians, is that correct?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
chi,
Chi and blood.
chi and blood, okay. And chi is the life force energy that animates everything that's alive. It's the spark of life. It's the life energy that's non-physical that you can't see with your eyes, but it's what's moving through us. And so the meridian system then, if there are blockages in the meridians or these highways, if we look at the highway metaphor, maybe there's like a traffic jam or maybe there's too much speeding through it, that causes dysregulation in the body. How does that manifest?
Yeah, so all different ways. So any way you can think of. So like physical is a really common thing. If there's to go with the metaphor, if there's a traffic jam or there's a stagnancy in the channel, there's too much energy, then it'll create physical pain. Physical pain that if you actually touch that area, the person will go, ouch, that hurts, versus pain that is caused from deficiency. So let's say there's not enough, maybe the highway's breaking down, right? You can't get through. So there's not enough blood and chi moving to that area of the body, then that can also cause physical pain. But when you press on it, it will actually feel good. So it's like, oh my God, yeah, please push, keep pushing on there. It can cause emotional imbalances. I mentioned early that the five elements correspond to different emotional states. So, for instance, if you have any sort of dysfunction in your metal meridians, which are the lung and the large intestine, you might be experiencing a tremendous amount of sorrow, sadness, grief. That can be either sorrow, sadness, grief that is overtaking you, or it can be repressed, where it's showing up in maybe there is physical dysfunction in the lung or large intestine, for instance. So, emotionally, psychologically, right, physically, spiritually, they show up in a lot of different ways. And then also those elements interact with each other. So they're not like they're all communicating, they're all working together to create homeostasis in the body and also, to move us forward in life.
Amazing. So balanced free-flowing chi in the meridian systems equals balanced free-flowing health, more or less.
Yeah, on all levels, right? So physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and psychological health when they are flowing and moving the way that they're meant to. Like, for instance, the meridians, they have, just like a river, they flow in a certain direction. So if they're flowing in the wrong direction, that's also an issue. There's a common example is it's called counterflow chi, and like this for your stomach. Like if you're having acid reflux or you're throwing up, like that's called counterflow chi, right? It's like, oh, it's actually going the opposite way than it's supposed to be doing. So it's really, really fascinating when you can study all the different nuances and the different ways that the energy is meant to flow in the body. It's really neat.
Amazing. So then acupuncture is a tool to help regulate or balance the flow of chi in the meridians.
Yes, in the whole body. What I love about acupuncture specifically is it's the only alternative modality that hits all 10 major body systems. So there is not another one that does that. They all, will focus on one or two body systems, but the acupuncture does all of it. And I think it's really cool because, there's the physical manipulation. You're using these needles, you're using them in the meridian system. They're at specific points that have different functions. I think of it like constellations. So instead of star constellations, it's on the body and it actually looks that way. If you've ever been able to see somebody with like a full treatment and all the needles in, that's what it looks like. I'm like, oh yeah, it's like their own little, star constellation thing happening. And it's beautiful. And there's a lot of harmony that happens within that too. So yeah, there's a lot of nuance to it as well. There's over 300 different acupuncture points in the body. As I mentioned, the 20 different meridians, they all go different places. They do different things. They have different amounts of points. For instance, the urinary bladder meridian, that was like the longest meridian in the body, as opposed to the extraordinary vessels don't even have any acupuncture points. I should, that's not true. Two of the eight do. The other six have to essentially borrow acupuncture points to activate those. So it's a really complex, beautiful system. Most people are really surprised. They're like, "But you have a master's degree to be an acupuncturist?" Well, you don't have to have a master's degree to do acupuncture, but I chose to do the master's degree, which also actually includes Chinese herbs, as interestingly enough. But the point is, it's a very complex system. It's also based on yin and yang principles as well. That's a huge part of Chinese medicine as well.
Amazing. So, and actually out here in California, it's a doctorate level requirement to be able to practice acupuncture, which I just think is, I agree with you. When my ex-husband, Jesse, acupuncturist back in Illinois and Wisconsin, people, excuse me, all the time would be like, wait, it's a master's degree? And it's like, yeah, it's quite a bit of schooling to be able to, it's a complex system, as you said. But so acupuncture is one way to balance, manipulate, and help regulate the meridian systems, as is five element dragon fire Reiki.
Yes, that's why one of the things that I love about it is, so again, I mentioned I'm very intuitive. I work with a lot of different guides and things like that. And that's what I was shown is that we can work with traditional usui, which is actually Japanese, the type of Reiki that I practice, the type that was brought over to the West. And I combine it with the meridian system. So while if you do a different type of Reiki, you are naturally going to be moving energy through the meridian system just like you are. You don't have to know every single organ in the body or tissue or anything like that. You don't even have to actually know the chakra system, but it's a completely different experience if you do, because there's a connection to it, there's an understanding of it. You can also become more intentional as a practitioner, and you can actually move that energy into the body deeper. And that's what I was shown, that's through practicing Reiki, through practicing acupuncture, by combining the two, something really, really beautiful and synergistic happens. And so it catalyzes and it just helps to rev up the energy even more, and move things along, whatever that person is needing, whether they have access too much energy that needs to be put into an area where it's deficient or vice versa. It's a beautiful thing. And it's like so exciting.
So, five element dragon fire Reiki, you birthed that. You brought that into the world.
Yes,
What
I
the
did.
fuck?
I know, I know. I was as surprised as you are. So back in 2022, I had been teaching, I've been doing Reiki since 2009 as a practitioner. I've been teaching it since 2015 when I opened my business. And in 2022, I was working with a mentor, and through that process, and I was working really closely with the earth itself. And then the dragons dropped in and they were like, guess what? This is what you're going to be doing. The world, the planet is now ready for you to bring alchemical dragon fire. And I had been practicing holy fire Reiki before that. So working with this fire frequency, they're like, this is different. It's dragon fire, but you're going to be taking this and you're going to show healers how to bring it into the meridian system, because you're ready. You're ready for this level of clearing, you're ready for this level of activation, and you're ready for this level of healing. And it was really exciting to me because, healers don't have to go out and get a master's degree unless you want to, of course. You can come into this and start to work intentionally with the meridian system, and it brings a completely different understanding of your clients, how to help them, and what's going on in their bodies, to both educate them and also help you when you are conducting or doing a Reiki session for somebody. It's really special. It's really special because it's not, no one else is doing it, certainly not the way that I bring it through.
Well, it's so interesting because I didn't place together holy fire and dragon fire. Like it's two different fire type energies. So Usui Holy Fire Reiki is what I currently teach, and that's what I practice. I also have done five of the levels to five element dragon fire Reiki, and actually just next week I'll be learning how to teach five element dragon fire Reiki. But essentially, five element dragon fire Reiki is, would you say, a more potent form of Reiki, like the next evolution of it? It's more refined. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's a little tricky to talk about it because in no way do I want to be like, oh, this is superior and therefore traditional Reiki or Holy Fire Reiki is inferior. It's not like that. It's more, but I do believe it is an evolution. It is a very like kind of logical evolution, right? Because we're all building off of what our, predecessors or ancestors as predecessors, what they have done. So that's what the dragons showed me. They showed me that I was working with Holy Fire. The reason that, and they were very, very direct with me. Again, I speak with them all the time. But when I opened my business, they were like, you need to take Holy Fire Reiki. And I was like, what the fuck is that? I'm like, I don't know what Holy Fire Reiki is because I had been practicing traditional Usui. And they're like, you need to take this. And I was like, okay, if you tell me I need to take it, then I need to take it. I didn't know at the time that that was helping to initiate me in this idea. And Holy Fire is more like the Holy Trinity. While no Reiki is religious, they do work heavily with the Holy Trinity. So I didn't know that experience was preparing me for when Dragonfire came in. And Dragonfire, it's incredibly alchemical. It is different. It is not the same frequency, but they're kind of like cousins, right? And again, it's this evolution. It's about how much energy are we ready to hold? How much are we ready to release? Like how much density are we ready to release? And I believe that before we weren't as a planet and now we are, and that's why they dropped in, because of the specific skill set that I have cultivated over a very long period of time to be able to combine them and do it in a really thoughtful, sacred way that honors all lineages. So like Reiki level 1 through 3 of Five Element Dragon Fire Reiki. It is a fusion of traditional Usui Reiki and 5e DFR. So 5e DFR for short, right? And so I want to honor that because it would not be what it is today without that. Same thing with Holy Fire. Like it's a really, really beautiful modality and has changed my life. So that's why it's like a little tricky to talk about for me. But at the end of the day, yes, I do. I'm channeling it. It's coming through me, but I feel like it's a collective thing, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, and a couple things came through while you were talking. So, one, I want to make the distinction because Usui Reiki then turned into Usui Holy Fire Reiki.
Well, yeah, so William Lee Rand, he is the founder of Holy Fire Reiki, and so that's what he did. He combined traditional Usui with Holy Fire Reiki. And so again, kind of I believe he was doing the same. He wanted to honor it, right? He wanted to honor Reiki and the lineage that we come from. And so that's what he did. Now, a big difference between Holy Fire or any other type of Reiki compared to Five Element Dragon Fire Reiki is that there are 9 levels of Five Element Dragon Fire Reiki, as you know, because levels 4 through 8 are dedicated to the 5 elements, to the meridians, specifically the elemental meridians, and also right to the elemental dragons too, because we work with them. So it's like, it's a lot going on, but it's also so synergistic and it's so fun for that reason.
And I want to jump in too because just with the analogy of how does an energy work evolve? What was coming through and like is one better or worse than the other? And there's no better or worse, or it's no hierarchy, but think of the evolution of technology, right? Where now we have AI, and that is a very potent, powerful tool of technology, but it doesn't say that like maybe a more basic program like a radio or a Game Boy is inferior. It's just different technology. But as consciousness evolves, so do these healing modalities. As consciousness evolves, so does technology. So that analogy wanted to come through, so I wanted to offer that to anybody listening.
Yeah, that's how it comes through for me too, right? And because of that, because of what everyone else has done, we're able to take it and make it our own and evolve it in our own way and do different things. So again, it's just like you said, there's no hierarchy. It's just a matter of preference. It's a matter of what you're drawn to.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, okay. So learning five element dragon fire Reiki, I have done the 5 levels of, I'm not as well versed in like, I've done 4 through 9, 4 through 9. I've
Four
done the
through eight.
four through
Yeah.
eight, five
Mhm.
elements, because you can learn 5 element dragon fire Reiki after you've taken 1, 2, and 3 of any other system of Reiki. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, you don't need to go start at the beginning. It's not necessary. You could, so like if you're a Reiki master in any kind of Reiki and you just want to dive in, any level 4 through 8 in any order, it doesn't matter what order. They're taught with the seasons because the elements correspond to the seasons. Like you can jump right in.
Okay, perfect. Because I did the first round. I did the water dragon in December of 2023, and I want to get into dragons here in a minute. But I just want to say, because I don't know if you've got other clients like this, but you know me, I can be a skeptic sometimes. I can be a skeptic sometimes. And I remember when the 5 element Dragonfire, when you started teaching it, I got the nudge to take the Water Dragon in 2023. And I remember like, okay, fine, I guess I'll do this. Like, yeah, right, Erin, sure. And I did it. And immediately after the class, it was like a whole the level, the amount of energy, the amount of Reiki, the amount of just regulation coming through my hands out the gate was at least 3, 4, 5, 6 times stronger than the Reiki I had done before. So immediately I was like, okay, okay.
Like, okay, I guess this is a thing. That's why it's like undeniable. I have one of my students, she took a different, like a more traditional type of Reiki, and then she did Five Element Dragon Fire Reiki, and she compared it to a lightning bolt rather than a light bulb, right? Those were her words. And that's
Yeah.
what a lot of my clients and my students have experienced. They're like, whoa, like it's so funny because I'm thinking of one of my students in particular when she made the switch because she did Holy Fire with me and then she went deeper into 5e DFR. And with one of her client was like, what are you, and it was over distance. It wasn't even in person. And she was like, what are you doing different? And she's like, well, I took this class and I'm doing this different type of Reiki now. And she was like, oh my God, like she didn't even know and she could feel it on the other end, not even, like I said, in person. So there's just this potency that comes, and I think a lot of that has to do with the dragons because of how incredibly powerful and also deeply loving dragons are, which is like, dragons, what?
Yes. Okay, wait. So almost to dragons, almost to dragons. I just want to reiterate the specificity of five element dragon fire Reiki, right? So there's five elements and there's 20 meridians. All of the meridians are within one of the five elements. And these elements correspond to different emotions, right?
Almost 100% accurate. It's 12 meridians are elemental and eight are not. Eight are what the extraordinary vessels, they're not associated with a particular element, but like other than that, like chef kiss.
Gotcha. So, for example, the earth element corresponds to worry and overthinking.
Yes,
So
exactly.
when you take the Earth Dragon, five element Dragon Fire class, you then get a specific frequency of Reiki to help with the emotions of worry and overthinking.
Yeah, so we work with the earth dragon, we work in the earth meridian, which are the spleen and stomach, and then we work specifically with those emotions, right? The worry and overthinking that you just mentioned. So it's really beautiful in that way because of the specificity. And I also teach it during the season that the element is most active. So in Chinese medicine, there are 5 seasons instead of 4. They break up summer into sort of early summer and late summer. So the fire element is summer, and then the earth element is actually late summer. So think of like harvest time, right? And it's incredible because of that specificity. Whereas other types of Reiki, not that there's anything wrong with it, but they're just a little bit more like, okay, we're just going to allow this divine consciousness to move through me and to do its thing through me. And that's a really beautiful thing. But for those who are desiring to deepen more, it's an amazing way to connect with the body on a completely different level.
Incredible. Will you go through just the five elements and the emotions that they correspond with, just to give people like a preview of the energy that they could work on with themselves or clients regarding emotions?
Yeah, absolutely. So the fire element, that's like mania and ecstatic joy, anxiety as well. The earth element we just talked about, which is worry and overthinking. The metal element I mentioned earlier, that's grief, sorrow, and sadness. The water element is fear, shock, overwhelm. And the wood element is anger, frustration, resentment, and indecisiveness.
And then those all correspond with specific organ systems as well. So if you were having, say, liver issues or lung issues, you could tune into that elemental Dragonfire Reiki and nourish yourself or clients in that way as well.
Yeah, so like if some we're right now as we're recording this, we just transitioned into the wood element. It's springtime. And so that's the liver and gallbladder in Eastern medicine. And it's anger, frustration, resentment, indecisiveness. Anger, frustration is specific to it is both liver and gallbladder, but really the liver. So if somebody is having issues, that's why I believe if somebody struggles, say, with addiction with alcohol, that
Mhm.
affects the liver mainly. They probably have some anger. They probably
Yeah.
have some anger issues, whether it's like the anger's taking over or they're repressing anger. There's probably some component, or people who smoke, they're probably that's lung that affects the lung primarily. They probably have not some, quite a bit of sorrow and sadness that they have not processed through.
Amazing.
Right. Yeah, I know.
That's so good. Okay. So now dragons. Like, okay, so I've heard of ascended masters and beings. Like, I work with Mary Magdalene and Buddha and Jesus and Odin and all of these commonly known mythological or just religious figures. How do dragons fit into all of this?
I they were not on my radar whatsoever. So let's go back to 2020. I was asking for a breakthrough. I was specifically working with Kali Ma, the goddess of death and destruction, and I was like, Kali, like I don't even care. Like whatever needs to happen here, just like show me the way. And within, I would say it was like a week or two, I actually met one of my she became my mentor, and she called herself the dragon doula. And through just working with her, it activated my own dragon codes. And that's very common for people to just like start hanging out with me, for instance, or they come into a program, maybe we're not even talking about dragons, and all of a sudden they're like, why am I like having dragon visualizations or dreams or seeing them everywhere? It's like, oh yeah, because your dragon codes just got activated. So she activated my dragon codes. We weren't even working on that. We were doing other stuff. It was like my business and things like that. And that's when they really dropped into my world. And the best way that I can describe dragons is they are the embodiment of raw electric power, unconditional love, and ancient wisdom. And I used to just say like raw electric power and unconditional love, but like the incredible amount of wisdom that they bring with them, it's so beautiful. And so that's like a threefold sacred flame that they bring with them, this energy. And I remember the first time I really truly experienced them as though they were with me, like in the room with me. And I couldn't make sense of it because I had never in my entire life experienced an energy. And I'm the same as you. I've been working with gods and goddesses and ascended masters and archangels and plant spirits or animal spirits, which are all incredible, right? Like,
Mhm.
but I had never experienced such potency of power and love simultaneously. In my human life, in my human experience, I've experienced people who have a lot of power who abuse it, and I've
Mhm.
experienced a lot of people who have a lot of love, but they're self-sacrificial and there's a lot of martyrdom, right? So there's a woundedness to it. I've never experienced that level of potency of those two energies together all at once. And it kind of like it shocked me. It changed me. It like there is a before and there is an after with that experience. And so ever since then, it's sort of like not sort of the dragons come when you are ready to live heaven on earth, when you are actually ready to make manifest your dreams, when you're ready to birth your vision for your life. They show up because they're incredibly potent at that. I always say with dragons, they will just as readily go into your underworld with you as they will into the heavens. Whereas other beings, like I'll use archangels as an example, not that an archangel won't go into your underworld with you, but they're more about like, at least my experience, everyone has their own unique experience and it's all valid. But my experience is it's more like they want to bring you into the light. Dragons are like, yeah, no, I'll go into like wherever you want to go. Like I'll go into the blackest, deepest, most shadowy depths with you if and I'm have fun doing it. Like they just the exuberance that these beings have, and they're very aligned to the earth, like incredibly aligned. So there's this sense of companionship that I get with dragons, and my clients and students have said the same thing, that they don't necessarily feel that level of kinship as they do with other beings. And I do really believe that our highest self, at least mine, is a dragon. Like, and so they're here to awaken that in us. It's really it's amazing. It's transcendental.
That's incredible. And I think it's so interesting that there's dragon lore in pretty much all cultures across the world. So it's
Yeah,
like a
and
common denominator across everybody when the religions, are kind of a little bit more separate.
yeah, that's one of the things that's so cool is they're and everyone who finally goes, wait, what dragons? Why are dragons coming up? It's like, oh, they've been with me my whole life. Like everyone talks about that, and it's true. They are across all country, all well, yeah, countries, continents, religions, and they are this steady force that has been with us. That it's so interesting looking at different cultures, and I think this is one of the reasons I was so drawn to Eastern culture is because they don't demonize dragons like other cultures do. And it just depends on which culture you are looking at and which religion, for instance.
Well, isn't it in China that like the emperors are the closest from the divine? It goes like divine dragons and then emperors back in ancient times.
Yeah, yeah. Well, even Eastern medicine, when we're talking about that, it's all based on the emperor and where the sun shines on the emperor's back. Like there's this whole thing with that. It's one of the reasons that in most cultures, the feminine aspect is the left side and the right side is the masculine. And it's flipped with Chinese medicine. It's actually the left side is the masculine and the right is the feminine. And it's because of the sun, the way that the sun hits the emperor. And the same thing with, we talked about the meridians as well, where the sunshine hits you, those are called the yang meridians, the quote unquote masculine meridians, the outermost. And anywhere there's shadows, those are the yin meridians, or the innermost part of your body. So like the front of your body and the inside of your body. So it's really fascinating how it all came about.
Amazing. Amazing. So I want to now kind of shift gears a little bit and talk more about what you're talking about with the dragons willing to go into the underworld. And just looking at the spiritual community and looking at, the journey of enlightenment. You always say that the journey of enlightenment is more of a descent into the body. And to do that, it's about going into the shadow, going into the underworld and excavating what no longer serves us, the shadow, the pain. Can you speak more to that journey?
Yeah, I really, in the spiritual community, people talk a lot about ascension and I talk a lot about descension. And you have to have both. It's just like a tree. When you're going to expand, if the tree is going to expand, it has to have really stable, strong roots. So it's not one or the other, it's both. It's just that people don't understand or don't talk about the descension into the body. So what that is, it's a reclamation of our human experience, of our human body. And there's a lot of hierarchy in the spiritual community, as though the upper chakras, so going back to chakras, are higher than the lower chakras. I mean, like technically they are higher, but they're not better. They're not superior. They're just different. They have different functions. And so there's this idea that the upper chakras are like, oh, that's where it's at. And that's why a lot of healers are, quite honestly, fucking miserable and they're broke and they are struggling in a lot of ways. It's because of this innate fear that has been, there's lots of reasons, right? And so they're afraid to go into the depths of their body because it's true, the frequency of the lower chakras, like the root chakra at the base of the spine, that's safety survival. If you look at the energy, the frequency, it moves, the waves are slower and it is anatomically lower, right? Closer to the earth, but it's more dense. You're dealing with more dense energies there. And so dragons, because of their alchemical nature, and no matter which elemental dragon you're working with fire. And there's 4 fire meridians in the body compared to all the other elements. There's only 2, but there's double, right? So this idea that they can go, the dragons go with us into the body to light it up, all the shadow aspects, and to help us integrate the shadow and to break up densities and to be able to move forward. And it's a really high sensation, very edgy thing that quite honestly most healers don't have the stomach for. Like, which is funny that I just said that because most healers get stuck at the solar plexus, which is where your stomach is. Like
Yeah.
in the descension process, they're like, "Oh, yeah, crown chakra's great," right? And I'm being a little tongue in cheek as I'm kind of poking fun at the spiritual community with my voice right now, but I love the spiritual community. But like kind of going into the third eye, like, "Oh yes, it's amazing," right? And then coming into the throat, and then usually there's like, "Oh, there's some catch there," and then into the heart. It's like, okay, we have big, beautiful hearts that are usually like really leaky. There's a lot of energy because that's that martyrdom, sacrificial energy. And then as soon as we hit the solar plexus, which is our identity and power, like you're like, oh, they get stuck. And that's where I specialize, is the descension from 3 to 1. Because again, think about birth. Like if I'm going to give birth to a baby, like I literally, like you can't give birth to a baby through your throat, right? Like, and so if you think about in a metaphorical sense, if you want to give birth to the vision of your life, your heaven on earth, whatever that looks like, you part of that is you must reclaim that lower chakra system as well. And it's a thing. And dragons will go there with you,
Yeah.
but they won't lie to you. They won't they do have tough love. They're hilarious. They are funny. They're incredibly loving, but they're also like no BS. They'll tell you if you're off.
Yeah.
Everyone
Well,
wants to hear that.
to well, because there's no bypassing here. There's no bypassing here. There's
There's
no,
no bypassing here, baby. Yeah, everyone wants like the really fast way, and it's like there's no way around but through. Like, and there is a faster way through, and that's why 5 element dragon fire Reiki exists. Is it's giving healers the tools and the ability to work with dragon medicine at the same time and awaken their own inner dragon. That's why when you took, they're like, oh, hey, go take the water dragon. You're like, okay, I guess. And then you're like, oh my God, because it wasn't just, okay, let's bring, and there's no just here, but bringing energy through and then through this divine consciousness just being the conduit, and that's an incredible thing too. There's something to be said for that. But when you awaken the dragon within, it's a completely different thing you're stepping into. And then when you also are working with other people, you can then awaken their dragon, which again is the combination of power, love, and wisdom. That's what you're awakening for them. So if we look at other cultures, no wonder some of them demonize dragons, because it's
Yeah,
hard to control a dragon, right? Like,
absolutely. So essentially, working with dragons and especially five element dragon fire Reiki, these are very potent tools to start doing more of the heavy lifting as you get down into the lower chakras.
yeah, it's everything. It's all of it, but in particular, yeah, because there's a lot of density in the meridian system as well. I know I just talked a lot about the chakra system, but it's not just the chakra system. It's the whole system of the body. And it's really interesting too. In the US, it was kind of like almost a joke in school how much, like, when we're diagnosing people, it's like, well, literally every American has what's called spleen chi deficiency. So not enough energy in their spleen stomach, which is the earth element. Hello. That's where your solar plexus's anatomical stomach is located, right there, right? So it's actually, it's like, yeah, it's such a thing, and we're in such denial of what needs to be done that we're making it a lot harder than it needs to be. There's a lot more suffering and a lot more getting stuck in undertows and negative feedback loops where you're just spinning and spinning and spinning and not going anywhere. And so when you start to work with dragons, when you start to work with, especially if you're an energy worker, you start to work with alchemical dragon fire, Reiki, the five elements, and the meridian system. I mean, it's going to move stuff without question. Like it's going to move the needle.
Well, and working with these densities, like what does that look like physically? Like, how does that manifest when, and I know the answer to this, but I'm curious, like, when we're clearing out density, what does that mean? What does that look like? We're clearing out density. Is that just sitting in meditation and things are floating away, or
I mean, sometimes it's that easy. It depends on your subconscious level of attachment to whatever's leaving. Because I wondered that a lot early on in my professional Reiki practice. I'm like, why is this person coming in and all this energy is moving out of them and they're just like having a good time, relaxed. And then this other person is sobbing on my table, or I'm sobbing. Like, what's going on here? And what I've been shown over time is it depends on your level of attachment, how much of your identity, going back to the solar plexus, right? Power and identity is wrapped up in whatever energy is trying to move out of you. So if you are constantly worrying and overthinking, and that's become your identity, if we go into your spleen stomach, like you might have a reaction. A really common reaction people have is getting nauseous, for instance. And it's nothing like too nuts. But like I, as a practitioner, it's not usually my clients. Sometimes it is. They will get nauseous momentarily, and so they're gonna have to breathe through that and like give themselves permission to release that because it's like this stagnancy. But I will feel it too, and so there's ways of moving through that as well. Sometimes somebody will come in for a session. The session will feel really groovy, and then after, it has activated this eruption of shadow, so which in this context are emotions that they think experiences that they've been through that they have not processed through. And so it's a time for them to do some shadow work or to work with the wounded aspects of themselves, which is something we have worked extensively together with, so that you could reintegrate that. It's like a soul retrieval of sorts. But sometimes it's really beautiful. Sometimes it is people will feel cosmic love, and sometimes it will be awful, honestly, and they will be crying or upset or feeling confused. It just depends. And that's not a typical Reiki session is usually is it going to be like that. But when I go really deep with people, we touch these triggers, we touch these deep wounds. And so that's something that I do is I hold people through that. You hold people through that experience. So it's not necessarily something like anybody listening who hasn't done a Reiki session before, you don't need to be like afraid, like, oh, it's fine. Nothing will ever happen that you can't handle. Like that's across the board. But sometimes, things do come up and sometimes people get really tired after sessions because their body has moved from the nervous system response of fight or flight, which is where we're like, oh my gosh, like I'm in survival mode, to the parasympathetic nervous system response, which is rest and digest, where it's like, oh, I can let go now. I can rest. I'm safe. So that feeling of safety, sometimes people think they're going to come to do Reiki and they're going to have more energy. They will, but
Yeah.
in the short term, they're going to be more tired because their body is finally rejuvenating itself because it feels safe enough to do so. So there's just like a wild array of different, things people can experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you're speaking more as to like when people come for a Reiki session, people come to see you and experience you bringing them the five element dragon fire Reiki. And then the other side of that coin is when you learn it for yourself and use it as, I almost see it as like a jackhammer to start like punching away at those densities within that then allow it to free up and vacate the system, whether that's just gently floating out, or if it's activating some deep wounding that then you get to complete the stress cycle and move through those emotions to really process it fully.
Yeah, it just depends. Everyone's different. Everyone moves at a different pace. Each practitioner is different. When you're doing Reiki for yourself, you're going to have a different experience than when you're working with somebody else. But no matter what, it's all such a massive contribution. It just depends on where you're at and what you desire.
Amazing. Well, this has been wonderful. I'm feeling complete. Or is there more you want to add to any of this?
No, I think that's really beautiful. And I think that, when people are ready, like they usually just get this tug. Like I had not even had a Reiki session before I decided to go do it. It's actually really
Yeah.
common for my students. They'll be like, I haven't even had Reiki before. I'm like, I just have to do this. So if you're called to do it and you don't even understand why, like that is enough reason to explore it.
Well, it's
It's
so
amazing.
interesting because like this was just, 4 or 5 months ago where I did all this business coaching and like in my mind it's like everybody should learn Reiki because it's such a contribution. It's such a tool for personal development, healing, connecting with the divine. I call it the gateway drug of the spiritual journey, right? And so I did all this business coaching and I was like, all right, I'm going to do a runway, I'm going to do a webinar, and I'm going to convince people that they should learn Reiki, and I'm going to use all these sales techniques. Um, and it didn't work. And it didn't feel good to me. It felt like it just like blah, put that away. But now I've reached the point where I'm just like, all right, I would love to be teaching more Reiki. I would really love to be teaching more Reiki, but I'm gonna trust that when people are ready, they're gonna come find me. And I like these videos for like informational purposes where people can do their homework and get a little bit more of the conscious mind on board with what they're signing up for. But like you said, like when I learned Reiki with you originally, somebody was just like, "Oh, you should learn Reiki. You'd be really good at it." And I was like, "Okay, never had a Reiki session. Don't really know what that is, but there's the pull. Let me follow it." So I think that's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I know there's so many different ways to play and to explore and to try it out, and there's different teachers who different types of Reiki, like there's just so much that you can do. There's in person, there's online. One of the things I love the most about Reiki is how flexible it is. It really is. Like you said, it's kind of this beautiful gateway or portal that allows us to, instead of to be functioning from conclusion of the mind, to drop into the curiosity of the spirit and the intuition. And that's it. That changed me. It changed me forever. Like I don't want to think about where I would be at if I didn't say yes to that nudge, like not needing to fully understand it before I said yes to it and to myself. Like I'm I don't want to even go there. Like no. So yeah, beautiful.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. What's the best way for people to find you? I'll put your website in the description.
Yeah, the best way. Well, so I have a website, crystalakereiki.com or 5elementdragonfirereiki.com. I'm also on Facebook under, Erin Ryan, and Instagram, 5 Element Dragon Fire over there too.
Awesome. Well, I'll put all that in the description. And thank you so much. This is amazing.
Thank you. It was so much fun. Take care.